Hey, welcome to this week's weekly devotional video. This is a series of videos right now where we're looking at the book of Daniel. And the whole purpose is that we try to illustrate a few ways to read and apply the text to your own life. You can call it hermeneutics, or you can just call it Bible study. And so we're going to look at one of those interesting techniques today because chapter 4 of Daniel contains an episode where the king, Nebuchadnezzar in this case, is shown a vision. And in that vision, there isn't an explicit meaning. It is mediated by an angelic being. He's kind of told what's going on. And then Daniel's going to give the interpretation. So that's one of the patterns to these dream reports or vision sections in the Old Testament, is seeing that vision that's mediated by someone else with an interpretation. And so when we get to the interpretation, that's where we want to really look at what the applied meaning of this text is. But before you get there, you have to kind of read and understand what the vision itself is. Because it doesn't really make much sense if you don't actually know what they're talking about. So we're going to do that today. We're going to look at the entire chapter in Daniel chapter 4. So let's go to the text now. All right. Well, in this particular chapter, Daniel he's not the one who starts out the chapter. We start with King Nebuchadnezzar, and he's responding to what happened in Daniel chapter 3, where the fiery furnace incident happened, and he says that he wants everyone, in verse 2 here, he wants everyone to know about the miraculous signs and wonders the Most High God has performed for me. And so in that, it certainly seems that Nebuchadnezzar has made a turn towards God. But we're going to see today that's not really the case. It's an outward show, but it doesn't necessarily mean that his heart has changed. And if we didn't have this particular story, we would have to say that maybe his heart had changed. But because we do have this particular story in Daniel chapter 4, we know that there wasn't an actual change on the inside of Nebuchadnezzar, but even though he gave lip service, to the Lord God. So he talks to us about his vision. He talks about how he has seen a vision of being in his comfort and prosperity in his palace, and he saw this vision, and he's not sure about it, and so he basically once again tells all of the magicians, astrologers, all of those people that he wants them to tell him what the dream was, but they can't interpret the dream. And then Daniel comes in, and Daniel, who is actually called Belteshazzar here, which is the Babylonian name he was given in chapter 1. So Daniel says that he can do it, but he doesn't want any of the gifts. And Nebuchadnezzar relays the vision here in chapter 4, verse 10. He says, "While I was lying in my bed, this is what I dreamed. I saw a large tree in the middle of the earth. The tree grew very tall and strong, reaching high into the heavens for all the world to see. It had fresh green leaves, and it was loaded with fruit for all to eat. Wild animals lived in its shade, and birds nested in its branches. All the world was fed from this tree. And as I lay there dreaming, I saw a messenger, a holy one, coming down from heaven." This is the mediator here. "The messenger shouted, 'Cut down the tree and lop off its branches. Shake off its leaves and scatter its fruit. Chase the wild animals from its shade and the birds from its branches, but leave the stump and the roots in the ground, bound with a band of iron and bronze, and surrounded by tender grass. Now let him be drenched with the dew of heaven, and let him live with the wild animals among the plants of the field. For 7 periods of time, let him have the mind of a wild animal instead of the mind of a human. For this has been decreed by the messengers. It is commanded by the holy ones, that everyone may know that the Most High rules over the kingdoms of the world. He gives them to anyone he chooses, even the lowliest of people." And in this section where Nebuchadnezzar relays the message, it's clear from the preceding part that Nebuchadnezzar doesn't understand what's going on here. He may have an inclination that it's not good, but he's not exactly sure what all these symbols mean. He doesn't get what's going on. You and I aren't given detail yet about what's going on. But the way that it's presented is that none of the wise men is able to do this thing where they interpret the dream. And Daniel actually, upon hearing it, turns to the king and he says, I really wish this was good. I wish this bad stuff that this is talking about would happen to your enemies, but it's not. And Nebuchadnezzar's like, okay, lay it on me. Tell me what's going on. And in verse 24, Daniel tells us this. He says, this is what the dream means, your majesty, and what the Most High has declared will happen to my lord the king. You will be driven from human society, and you will live in the fields with the wild animals. You will eat grass like a cow, and you will be drenched with the dew of heaven. 7 periods of time will pass while you live in this way until you learn that the Most High rules over the kingdoms of the world and gives them to anyone he chooses. And so that's the main thrust of this dream. Daniel ends by saying, Nebuchadnezzar, stop sinning and turn to the Lord. Do what is right. And then he says, and perhaps you'll continue to prosper. And so Daniel is given the ability by God to interpret the dream. This is presented as something unique to Daniel that he is able to do that no one else is able to do. And so just as Nebuchadnezzar was the chosen one to be the king and bring prosperity to the world around him, Daniel is the chosen one to be used as a way of relaying the meaning of this dream. So when you and I read a text like this, our job is not to try and figure out what the vision means or to immediately jump to what that could mean in our world today. If we just continue reading the text, it actually tells us what the dream means. And so that's kind of the first thing I want you to catch as we look at a text that includes this vision and a later interpretation, is that for the most part, we don't have to interpret what these visions mean. We're usually given an interpretation in Scripture. And in this particular case, Nebuchadnezzar is told that means bad things are coming to him. And so we continue on in chapter 4, verse 30, and it reads, as he looked out across the city, he said, look at this great city of Babylon. By my own mighty power, I have built this beautiful city as my royal residence to display my majestic splendor. While these words were still in his mouth, a voice called down from heaven, O King Nebuchadnezzar, this message is for you. You are no longer ruler of this kingdom. You will be driven from human society. You will live in the fields with the wild animals, and you will eat grass like a cow. 7 periods of time will pass while you live in this way until you learn that the Most High rules over the kingdoms of the world and gives them to anyone he chooses. And so at that very moment, Nebuchadnezzar is cleared out from the city. He has to go live in the countryside. He basically goes crazy, and he's living as a wild animal out there. His hair grows long and fingernails are long and everything. And then we assume some time has passed now for those things to have happened. I mean, it takes a while for those changes to come upon a human body. And then we pick up in verse 34. After this time had passed, I, Nebuchadnezzar, looked up to heaven. My sanity returned, and I praised and worshiped the Most High and honored the one who lives forever. His rule is everlasting, and his kingdom is eternal. All the people of earth are nothing compared to him. He does as he pleases among the angels of heaven and among the people of the earth. No one can stop him or say to him, what do you mean by doing these things? When my sanity returned to me, so did my honor and glory and kingdom. My advisors and nobles sought me out, and I was restored as head of my kingdom with even greater honor than before. Now, I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and glorify and honor the King of heaven. All his acts are just and true, and he is able to humble the proud. And I just want to reread that last phrase, and he is able to humble the proud. In this chapter, we began by seeing that Nebuchadnezzar had the outward form of honoring God, but it was clear that he didn't really think that inside. That wasn't his heart posture. That wasn't the foundation of his life. And so he had that dream that showed that God would take all of this away. And we're shown he actually has a chance before the punishment. He has a chance when Daniel says, give up your sinful ways and perhaps your prosperity will continue. And so he doesn't. The next part, we're told he's being arrogant. He's looking around and thinking to himself how great he is because he's built all of this stuff. And it's easy for us to see Nebuchadnezzar and to think that, he got what it was coming to him, that he should have known not to be so proud. But the thing is, you and I do the same thing all the time. We think that we deserve that new vehicle, or we think that we deserve, that extra nice meal at a restaurant, or we think that maybe we deserve new clothing or something because, we've worked hard, because we've done X or Y or Z or whatever. That is the same attitude that Nebuchadnezzar had that we're displaying in our own lives. And so the challenge here, if we believe that God is really in control of things, and I think we should, then we need to believe that God can do as he chooses and allow things to happen as he chooses, and that God is able to humble the proud, as the last phrase in this text of chapter 4 tells us. He's able to humble the proud. And I would even go a step further and say that God usually humbles the proud. In my own life, the times when God has allowed me to walk through some hard moments has often been when I am acting out of pride, or when I think that I am better than others. There's only one who is worthy of praise. Philippians chapter 2 talks about how Jesus, when he was in human form here on the earth, humbled himself, and he did not use that godly privilege, that status. Instead, he took the form of a servant and humbled himself in obedience to God, even to the point of death. And part of what Jesus did while he was here was set an example for us of how to live. So his example is completely different than Nebuchadnezzar. Rather than reflecting on the achievements that he's made or the status that he has, Jesus chose to be humble and to serve others. And that's the example that we're to follow. If we truly believe God is in control, and I do, then we ought to believe that when we act in that way, we're serving others, we're considering others better than ourselves, more, loving others more than we, or I guess before we love ourselves. When we do those things, we should believe that we are living in order with the way God's created and intended things to live, but also that he will reward us for doing that, for living and acting in accordance with the way he's created things to be, and acknowledging him as the one in charge. So I hope that you'll do that today. I hope that you'll think about and pray about ways that you can acknowledge God as the one in charge, and that maybe you'll find some areas where you can act more humbly this week. So I'd love to talk to you more about the book of Daniel or other books or other things even. And so if you want to talk more, you can email me, jallison@greenwoodbc.com, or you can come find me in between our worship services on Sunday. I'll see you next time.